This is a mini meditation guided by Bombas. Repeat after me. I'm comfy. I'm cozy. I have 0 blisters on my toes. And that's because I wear Bombas, the softest socks, underwear, and t-shirts that give back. One purchased equals one donated. Now go to bombas.com/listen and use code LISTEN for 20% off your first purchase. That's bombas.com/listen and use code LISTEN at checkout.
Every team, every topic, everywhere. This is Believe.
Welcome back to Heaving Bosoms, the podcast where two best friends recap romance novels while going on emotional roller coasters and swooning.
Stack our shelves with the clinches out. Shout it from the rooftop, can you hear the sound? Yeah. Live your best life, love it out loud. Love it out loud.
Hey HPs! When we left off yesterday, the Marquess Dryden had just offered to make Phoebe his mistress and was thoroughly rejected. Now, they're both independently heading to London to finish the season. Here we go! So the next morning, after she runs away from his mistress proposal, she is at the breakfast table and she gets an invitation from those twins to come and stay with them in London for 2 weeks and like go to their parties and stuff and like wear their dresses because they know that she's poor and she doesn't have any. And when she tells Lisbeth this, Lisbeth is like, oh, so you would go, because they invited me too. And so like you would go to like dance? And she's like, yeah. Because the night before, she tells Lisbeth that people asked her to dance. And so she gets to join in the revelry. And Lisbeth says to her completely seriously and without any guile, says, but weren't you all ready? Mm-hmm. And she has to say to herself, like, don't tell her that watching her dance is different, you know?
Yeah. So we zippy-zap to London, and she's staying with the family in the family quarters. Mm-hmm. Importantly, Charybdis is with her.
Yeah. And the twins love how violent he is. The twins are like, we're going to win him over.
Mm-hmm. And also, very importantly, the Silverton family has a parrot and a Pekingese.
A Pekingese.
Pekingese.
Did you say a Pekingese?
Pekingese.
Is there a G in that word? Whoa, I didn't know that. I don't know if I've ever seen the word Pekingese written out.
I'm really bad about being very literal about enunciating every fucking thing in a word. Like that. Yeah. There's an example that I get shit for. Oh, like technically, things like that, where it's very clear, like it's technically. And so in my brain wants to say Pekingese.
Yeah, that makes sense.
February and things like that. Interesting. Love that getting noticed live on pod.
The worst thing, though, is when you realize that you've always misspelled a word because you enunciate every consonant.
Interesting. Mine is mispronouncing a word because I've only ever read it.
Yeah, but there was one word, it starts with a P. It's something like perusal. Oh, no, it was perseverance. Because I would always say perseverance. And then finally, somebody was like, why do you keep saying perseverance? And I'm like, well, that's how you say it. They're like, no, it's perseverance. And I was like, well, that's only if you don't say that R. And they're like, there is no R there. And I was like, oh, no.
Okay, one of my favorites, because my issue is definitely pronunciation over not being, like, not knowing what a thing was, right?
Yeah.
But my favorite is, like, those threads and where people are talking about their experiences with words like that. And my favorite is people thinking that chest of drawers
is
Chester drawers.
Yes, yes,
And
yes,
that they
yes,
were
yes.
called that because some guy named Chester is the one who built them originally, and just, like, stuff like that. It is I just
Phonetics, you know? Wow.
English really is just the pickpocket of languages.
It's the Wild West.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, so she's there, and Dryden shows up to take
Lisbeth writing.
on a ride to the row or something like that, and he is dumbstruck when he sees her standing there. Very
He
much
doesn't
so.
say anything. He literally is dumbstruck. He cannot greet
Uh-huh.
anyone. And then it says in his inner monologue that he just stood there staring at the wrong woman. Oh, no.
Yeah. And then, importantly, I don't remember exactly how or when it happens, but you remember we mentioned the cheroot thing
Mm-hmm.
on the shawl?
He's getting her off her horse.
Oh, that's when it is.
And he's thinking, "Oh wow, I've never really." He says something like how gratifying it was the way his hands spanned her taut waist or whatever. And then he's like, "Oh shit, she's a woman."
She's not just a prize.
Yeah, I'm kind of ashamed of myself that I haven't really been thinking of her as like a flesh and blood woman. And so he's like grazing her body down his and he's looking deeply into her eyes to be like, I bet we could be sexy together or whatever. And then she freezes and he thinks that he's like offended her or scared her or done something wrong. And she says, "What do I smell?" And he says, "It's my specialty brand of cheroots that only
Yeah.
I smoke." Oh no.
So we zippy zap to the first ball.
Wait, I'm so sorry. This was the other time when I knew that Lisbeth is a snake
Oh,
because she looked at him and she says, "Oh, okay, the next time I smell that, I'll think of you."
Mhm.
Oh my God. So now we're at a ball. Sorry.
We zippy zap to the ball, and Waterburn and DeAndre, they're best friends with the twins, by the way. So we see a lot of them coming up.
Yeah.
And they basically prostrate themselves on the ground in front of her. And they're like,
Mhm.
please dance with me, please. And she's just
Yeah.
having a good old time because as far as she's concerned, she's just a part of the friend group now. And so she and the twins are like jokingly like, oh, should I dance with them? And she ends up with them on her dance card.
And then she ends up with a deluge of invitations to the dance floor.
Yeah, her dance card's full.
And she thinks to herself, like, it doesn't matter where my life goes after this, I will keep this dance card for the rest of my
Oh
life.
my God. And also in her head, while she's thinking that, she's like, maybe I shouldn't go to Africa.
Yeah, like maybe there is a place here for me in England.
Her biggest thing is that she's just always wanted to belong. She's never belonged anywhere. And so Dryden can't stop himself from going up to talk to her. And of note, she says to him, have you noticed something, Lord Dryden? All of the forelocks? 'Cause
Oh, yeah.
everybody in the fucking room has a forelock now.
Even the old dudes, it says as long as they have enough hair, even they're pulling their forelocks down.
And he says to her, what I like best about you, Miss Vale, is how you remind me of all my finest hours. And she's like, I was there for them. And he says, perhaps because you were the cause of them, which is a lot of layers of meaning because they've also noticed that people are purposefully flinging their dance partners, dropping to the ground, jumping back up, and continuing to dance.
Yeah. They've started this new way of waltzing. And she says, what should we call that move in the dance? Should we call it the illicit kiss or the Dryden? And he's just like, kill me now.
So he asks her if she'll dance with him. And she looks at him and she's like, actually, my dance card is full. She's like, it's the most astonishing thing. All the gentlemen seem to want to dance with me. Maybe because I'm new. And he says, no, it's because you're beautiful and special. Oh, and then this is when the whim thing happens about all of his future basically being set out. Well, so no, because this is very important. So we talked about how she's
the setup
always
is
wanted
important.
to belong. And she says, do you see the trouble? And here it was, I thought you set the fashion, Lord Dryden. It seems that fashion has outsmarted you. You would set me up in a house in London and make love to me and visit me whenever you can. But you never would have asked to dance with me at this ball because I never would have been invited. All I've
Mhm.
ever wanted is to belong somewhere. And if I became your mistress, you would take that away from me forever. And he says, it isn't true. Think of all of the things that I would give to you. And she's like, no, because now you can dance with me because it's socially acceptable and
Right.
everybody wants to dance with me. And
Oh my
he gets
god.
angry. He's
Yeah.
frustrated. And he's like, "What would you have me do? I have never been dishonest with you. You
Mhm.
knew what my plans are, and you're right that our lives are very different." And he's talking about all these and he says to
He's
her,
like, "I may not understand what your childhood is like, but
"Mhm.
you don't understand the position that I'm in either."
Marriage can never be a thing of whim for a man like me. My family history, my
Mhm.
legacy, the people who rely on me. These are not small things. They are the root of my life.
Yeah.
Ugh.
And then she says that you can't fit everyone neatly into boxes, and then he says, "Oh, is that so?" He gave a short, sardonic laugh. "I cannot tell you how much I appreciate my continued education at your hands, Miss Vale. But here is the thing you, in all of your cleverness, fail to recognize. You believe I should compromise everything I am and everything I want because some things don't fit neatly into boxes. And yet, you're so self righteously bloody unwilling to do the same for me. Who here is the hypocrite?" And then he says, "Do you know what I think? I think you're afraid. I think you'd rather run away from me and how you feel and what you want to Africa. And why should I endure the company of a coward?"
That was a step too far, my friend.
I stopped in my tracks, and she reared back as if he struck her.
Like, okay, so it's one of those where I
I was with you, I was with you, I
I
was with you, I was with
exactly,
you,
like,
and then you
I
went
was
off the cliff.
I was there's a couple of times in this book where I understand where he's coming from, I understand where she's
Yeah.
coming from, and, like, this was honestly, this is one of the best books that I've read where this is the main conflict, right?
Mhm.
Because oftentimes when I'm reading it, I'm just like, "Okay, like, ye" but, like, I'm with you on all of it. He has,
Well,
like
like with Duke of Midnight, for example,
Mhm.
it's like Artemis is technically part of the gentry.
That's a great
Like,
example,
she's
like
poor, but she is a lady, capital L.
yeah.
She is not literally plucked from the gutter.
Yeah, and, like, this is a great example of this, right? Like, their
Mhm.
class is complete another great example of it is, I can't think of the name damn it, I can't think of the name. It's the first book in the League of Extraordinary Women series by some
Oh, okay.
author, and I think Maxwell or whatever, but, like, I remember that book also, to me anyway, being a good example of it because, like,
Mm.
they're from 2 completely different stratospheres, right?
Yeah.
I just realized that he's also like Dryden in the sense that he's stoic and
But
quiet.
okay, all
And
right,
anyway,
we cannot, Sabrina. So, as they do this, she, like, watches him dance with Lisbeth for the
well,
rest of the night.
importantly, they get cut off. This conversation ends because a man named Lord Camber comes up to take his dance
Yes.
from her. And Lord Camber's very important because he essentially starts legitimately courting her.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Completely,
Mhm.
completely courting her.
Yeah.
So they have a wonderful time at this ball. She manages to put him, out of her mind as much as she possibly can. And he ends up having a conversation with Lisbeth that is really important because he says, like,
Oh,
"What do you want? What makes you happy?" And she's like, "What do I want?" As in, like, "Do I want a cake right now?" And he's like, "No, like, out of life." And she says, "What, do you think I'm unhappy?" And it just, in this conversation, he realizes that if he marries her, he will be sleeping next to a stranger his whole life.
and
Like,
he'll never be
he'll never be known.
known.
He'll never be known.
So I don't remember if this happens before or after, but something of import
Yeah.
is when he was at White's, he never goes by the betting books, but he
Mm.
overheard some people talking about like some person getting a nickname and hothouse flowers and stuff like that. And he doesn't think twice about it because he doesn't give a shit about the betting books.
No.
But importantly,
And
he
it's
goes
it's
to
Lord
the
Waterboard who's doing that.
yeah. And he is in the library at this ball to take a break, and Lord Camber comes in and he is crowing about the fact that he got to
Yeah.
dance with the original. And Dryden is
Mhm.
just fuming about it because he realizes the original is Miss Vale.
Yeah.
Oh, and he's suddenly realizing that somebody who isn't shackled by land and legacy
Yeah.
might actually go after her. And then he'll have
Right.
to see her at events like this for the rest of his life.
Married to someone else.
And he
Oh my
is,
God.
ugh. And then he notices Waterburn and Dondre exchange money
Yeah.
in the library.
So then the next morning, something incredible happens to Phoebe. She wakes up and everybody is screaming about how she got 5 bouquets of hothouse flowers.
Uh-huh.
And
By
then
the
they
way,
also,
she has her first hangover ever.
oh God, yes.
And it's so fucking, she's like, how do these people do it?
Oh my
And,
God.
and basically, the Silverton twins are like, you drink coffee and then you do it again. And I'm like,
Yep.
I remember those days where you just,
Right.
mhm.
You just keep on the train. Yeah. And
No.
so not only that, but then they hand her this teeny tiny sachet and they say, like, oh, and you also got these weeds. We don't really understand what's going on, but a note came with them. And so we didn't throw them away.
It's sage. Mel,
It's
my
a
note
it's a
is
bundle of
literally, my
sage.
note is literally, oh my God, I can't turn the page. I'm going to die. I literally, I couldn't. I paused and I messaged
I
the friend that I've
know.
been like screaming about this book with, because I can't scream at you about it with, and they've read the
Right.
series. And I was like messaging, I was like, I can't turn the fucking page. I can't turn the page.
And
I
the
did
note
turn
that
the
comes
page,
along with
listener.
it, it says, "You're wrong. I do know you." And then also she looks over and like the one bouquet that's not for her is the biggest and the grandest and the most elegant, and it's obviously from Dryden for Lisbeth. And so she's trying to pass this sage off as like something that a lady that she met last night would send to her because you can pack your trunks with it or something and make your clothes smell good. And Lisbeth is just sort of like eagle-eyeing all of this, and she picks it up and then like looks at it and then puts it back down. Lisbeth knows that something's going on.
Yeah. So she and the boys and the twins all go for a ride out in the row. And while she's gone, Lisbeth stays because she's waiting to go ride with Dryden, right? We have some animal chaos.
Yeah, adorable,
Charybdis.
very funny. That parrot is yelling at the cat to be quiet, monkey, in French. Be quiet, monkey.
Because it's the closest thing that it doesn't know what a cat is. And
It's never seen a cat
the fact
before.
that it's seen a monkey, apparently, that's the most
That's rich
fucking
people shit.
aristocratic shit I've ever heard
That's rich
in my
people
life.
shit.
But
Yeah.
so Charybdis is actually supposed to stay in her room. Nobody in the house except for the twins and Lisbeth know that the cat is there. So Charybdis, there's this whole scene, and then there's a knock on the door, and the butler opens it.
Yeah.
And when he opens it, Charybdis takes off. Boom. Gone. And Dryden's like, what the
And the
hell?
person who knocked was Dryden, coming
And
in
he's
to
like,
pick up Lisbeth.
yeah. And he's like, what was that? And the mother is
Yeah.
like, oh, it's some cat that got in here somehow. And he clocks immediately that that's Charybdis, and he takes off.
The most romantic thing that anybody's ever done for anybody in their fucking lives. He goes running after this cat.
This was simultaneously one of the most romantic things I've ever read, but also one of the funniest scenes I've ever read in my entire
It's
life.
so funny.
He is so desperate. He's running up to every person. He's like, have you seen a cat? Have you seen a cat? When he finally sees somebody who is like, oh yeah, I saw a striped cat go running that way. He is so happy that he grabs this man by the head and kisses him on top of his bald head. And he's like,
I loved it.
thank you. And he goes running up.
Yes.
And then, listener, we didn't exactly tell you this, but Charybdis is devil spawn.
Savage. Yeah.
This is like demon incarnate. This cat fucking hates people. Everything. This cat hates everything except
The only person he's ever loved is Phoebe.
And so he sees Charybdis laying on his back in the grass, and immediately he's like, oh my God, the cat's dead.
It's been run over.
How can I possibly tell her? And then he sees the little like toe beans stretch in the sunlight. And he's like, oh, thank God. So he comes up and he like very, very carefully walks up and he's like,
And
there we Charybdis.
he's like
Why
baby
don't we-"
talking it, being like,
Listener,
you can stay calm, everything's good.
we're told by Phoebe that Charybdis loves to show off his soft, soft, fluffy belly. And then when you go to pet that soft, fluffy belly, he attacks.
It's the lure.
Yeah. Slowly, painstakingly slowly, he extended a hand. And how could he resist? He succumbed to temptation and sank his hand gently into that soft fur. That cat closes like a bear trap.
Immediately punished.
Like all four paws are like clinging to him and he's biting him and he's growling the whole time.
Oh my God.
And it says,
growling like a
Jules
demon.
screamed
Like a woman.
And like now there's a crowd of like working folk surrounding him and they're like hollering. They're like, oh, get him, puss. I've got a $5 on the gov. My blunts are the wee puss. It is freaking hysterical. And he's like, will any of you help me?
Just help me.
And they're like, well, you see, lordship, we don't know what you're trying to do. And he says, it is the beloved, by the way, he's like in agony. He's like, it is the beloved pet of a lady. And I wish to return it to her alive.
And then somebody says, that doesn't seem like a really good pet for a lady, but I've got a badger we can put a ribbon on. Oh my God.
Oh my gosh. So he bribes them with money and three of them successfully get the cat unattached. And now he's holding it like a goddamn football, right? Like with the little feet out underneath his arms. And one of the guys who helps, he's like, you know what? Keep your money, dude. I'm right with God right now, and that is a demon. So, like, I'm not going to take your money because I want to go to heaven. Thanks.
Everybody else is like, give me your money. And so now he doesn't have a hack. He doesn't have money for a hack. So he walks all the way from wherever the fuck he is to White's because he's supposed to have a meeting with Lisbeth's uncle about like rich dude money shit so that they can like settle her dowry or whatever. Oh my God.
He walks into White's with the cat. By the way, the entire time he's been walking there, Charybdis is like yodeling. And he walks in, and Waterburn walks up and he's like, oh, handsome beast, how much did you pay for it? And he's like, it's surprising what can be had for no cost at all, Waterburn. Why don't you pet it? And like the cat obviously does not let. By the way, the funniest part is when he walks in, Charybdis has been yodeling the entire time, and when they walk into White's, Charybdis goes dead silent and just looks around for all intents and purposes as if he was a prospective member who found the place wanting.
Also, I love this part because that's the first thing that Phoebe does when Lisbeth asks what's in her basket when she arrives. She's like, why don't you find out? And it's like one of the meanest things she's ever done to anybody in her life. And she feels a little bad for it, but also not. And then this fucker's like, why don't you pet him? Yeah, come on over.
So the reason he's at White's is to reschedule with Isaiah Redmond. And he walks up to him and this is such an aristocratic thing to do. And this is one of my favorite micro tropes in a fucking historical romance.
Yeah.
Because Redmond is just looking up at him like, what the fuck? But Jules was certain he found the Marquess's expression as haughty and impenetrable as usual, if not more so than usual. It was an expression of the strongly discouraged questions, an expression that implied that everything he did was trustworthy and beyond question, and above all, sane, and was, of course, rooted in style and sense and purpose. All balderdash lately, of course, but he still had command of the expression at least. Jules bowed, and the cat dipped with him. So he reschedules. He's like, I'm so sorry, I had an errand. No further questions.
Obviously urgent errand. So sorry?
Importantly, he stops by the betting boats on his way out for the first time, and he sees that Waterburn and DeAndre have placed bets. One,
Mhm.
that she will have a nickname before the fortnight is out. Two, that she will receive hothouse bouquets before a fortnight is out. And three,
Mhm.
that a duel will be fought over her in a fortnight. And he is horrified because all of this attention is his fault.
Fucking livid, yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
yeah, he's so mad.
And he also realizes the Silverton girls are in on it because he remembers overhearing Waterburn and DeAndre being like, "Oh, how are we going to know about the hothouse bouquets
Oh.
though?" And he remembers them saying, "Oh, the girls will let us know." So now he knows that
Yeah.
her entire little friend group is not
Is
her
fake.
friend. Yeah.
Yeah. So then he goes home and he sends a hack to the place she's staying. And he's like, I need you to say this very cryptic thing that tells her that I have her cat and I am me. He says, like, yeah, go ahead.
His butler says, "Are we to compose a ransom note to send along too, then, sir? Would you like to sign it, or shall I spend some time cutting out letters from the newspaper and affixing them to a sheet of foolscap?" And he says, "How much am I paying you to be witty, my
Mhm.
lord?" And he says, "Not nearly enough, my lord." So this guy shows up and he's like,
Dryden.
"I have a message for Miss Vale and only Miss Vale." And the twins are like, "Ooh, I'm Miss Vale." And he's like, "I'm not paid enough for this." And he's like,
Right.
"I'm here. Okay, fuck it. I'm here to share a message, something about humidors and a cat." And
Yes.
she clocks it immediately
Humidors.
because she's
Yeah.
been distraught, by the
And
way.
nobody
Like,
can understand that she's legitimately distraught.
and then Lisbeth, that fucking
Oh, yeah.
bitch. Oh my God. She comes downstairs and she's like, "What has happened?" And Phoebe's like, "My cat is gone." And Lisbeth goes, "Oh, well, a maid must have
Probably a maid.
left your door open." And then turns and makes eye contact with her.
And Phoebe knows that this bitch left the door open so that Charybdis would get out.
Uh-huh.
And
She
she
Lisbeth
cannot
says, "I hope
believe it.
someone finds your cat." "You'd best," Phoebe
You'd
says.
best.
Gratifyingly, Lisbeth paled and dropped her eyes. If nothing else, she wanted Lisbeth to worry about sleeping under the same roof with her.
Yeah, she's had this cat since she was 10. And he's been the only constant in her life since she was plucked out of St. Giles. So she gets in the hackney. She goes over there. She goes running up the stairs. The butler just is like, go up. It's like the first door on the left or whatever. Also, take this St. John's wort because he
Mhm.
got torn up by that cat. And so she goes running up and like ignores that he's there, picks up her cat, and he looks at her and he thinks to himself, I put that joy there. I did that for her. And
Mhm.
that is what is most rewarding for him.
Yeah. Oh, this was very poignant
Yeah.
because Charybdis, the little asshole, is now like curled up around his leg. And she's like, "Go ahead. He likes his back rubbed." And he says, "The creature inflicts grievous wounds upon my person and expects me to forgive it." And she says, "I expect a lot of creatures inflict grievous wounds and expect forgiveness."
Yeah.
Oof.
So she's in his bedroom now,
Yeah.
notably. She's in his bedroom. She puts the cat back down or whatever, and he's like circling his feet, like you said. And he's like, okay, well, are you going to help me with all of my injuries? And she calls his bluff. He takes off his shirt and she calls his bluff and goes over and she starts putting the St. John's wort on his arm and then on his chest. And he is like, okay, do whatever you want, Phoebe.
Specifically, at one point, while she's touching him on his
Yeah.
chest, and you, like you said, he's like, "Do what you want."
Mm-hmm.
She has her hands up like near his face and she puts a hand to his cheek because he looks at her. He turned to her with something like bemused entreaty on his face. "Save me from myself." And
Mm-hmm.
she cradles his face in her hand and tentatively, almost experimentally, he turned his face into her hand and raised his hand to cover hers. And then he sighed. Because she realizes, oh my God, I'm making a hash of his life. All of these things
Yeah.
that he's done, it's fucking everything up for him. But also it means so much because like this is the most important, this cat is the most important thing to her in this entire
Yeah.
world.
Because she says, like, thank you. I cannot adequately express how grateful I am that you found him.
Mhm.
And oh my God. So then she rests her forehead against his chest and she thinks that he smells like heaven and sex and temptation and home. My
Mhm.
favorite, that's one of my favorite microtropes in any romance, when somebody feels or smells or looks like home.
Mhm.
And then
Listener?
he says some of the sexiest things that I just have to read out loud to you.
Yep. Go for it.
He's He says, you see, I've been standing here. I've been thinking about the skin above your stockings, on that very secret place just on the inside of your thighs, right above your garters, because I suspect, oh, dear God, I suspect it's soft, Phoebe, like new skin never touched. The petals of a blossom can only dream of being as delicate as this skin. Charybdis has nothing on you. If you were to lie on your back in the mews, crowds would gather from all over for one touch of that skin. And he says, and I think right now, deep between your legs, you're wet, Phoebe, from wanting me, from imagining me touching you, licking you just there. If I were to slide my fingers between your legs right now, they would come away drenched. If I were to taste you, my thirst would be slaked.
Sir.
Oh my God. And then he says, would you like to wager that I'm right, Phoebe? Lift your skirts in your hands for yes. I want you complicit.
Mhm.
And then he says, going once, going twice. And
She
it
as
says,
she's lifting those skirts, it says he sank down, down, down easily to his knees. And boy, we have a going up, listener.
Yes.
He is touching on her and he kisses that part of her thigh and he's like says
Yeah.
to her, I was right. So soft. And he sounds intoxicated. And then like she has her hands in his hair and she's never had an orgasm.
Yeah.
And so she has no idea what's coming for her as he is literally being a cunning linguist
There we go. There
on
we
her.
go. Yeah. One of my favorite parts of this, though, is that as he's doing this, because he has to, like, sort of help hold her up. But one of my favorite parts of this is that the text says something to the effect of they learned together the rhythm that she liked
I
and like
love
what
that.
she needed, right? Because she's sort of grinding on him as well.
Uh-huh.
And like they're figuring it out together.
Mhm.
How to give her her first orgasm. And it's just so gorgeous.
Oh my God, it was beautiful. And then she comes and he's like holding her up and it was really wonderful. And then he basically tells her like I would kill to make love to you right now. Like
Yeah.
and she says no.
Yeah.
And he's like, "What? Why?" And she's like, "Because that was incredible, but nothing has changed."
Yeah. But I do need listener to know that she Han Solos him hard because he says, I should love nothing more than to make love to you, Phoebe. And she says, I know.
She does that a couple of times.
I know.
In this book. Honestly, so
best.
this is one of those scenes that sets this book apart for me from a lot of
Mhm.
historicals that have this exact same plot,
Uh-huh.
right? Because this is not a unique plot, right? If you read historical, you've read this
Yeah. It's not a unique
countless
premise.
times.
Yeah.
But the fact that and we see it in her head. Most of these scenes are happening from her point of view.
Right.
We see her wanting desperately, right, to agree to this, to just throw all of her wants, all of her dreams,
Yeah.
all of these things out the window, and she still says, "No, nothing has changed." Like
Well,
there's
it's
no
like I want to do it in this moment, but it's
Mhm.
ultimately not going to be healthy for either of us. And then he says, if you knew how I felt when he stopped himself. Because what just happened here was only a hint of how it could be. It could be unbelievably good between us. I know. You see, I've experienced these things, whether you want to hear about it or not, and I've never wanted like this. Never. It's never been this explosive with anyone else. And she thinks, wanted? Loved, you fool, she wanted to tell him. That was the entire reason for the bruise and the cat and the desire. I know, was all she says. And then he says, it sounds like you're patronizing me. And she shrugs. At one point, he looks so desolated that she thinks to herself, all she wants to do is to go comfort him. But then who would comfort her?
Yeah.
And like that moment with her was so poignant, you know?
This whole scene was heartbreaking. All like the push and pull between them is heartbreaking because at one point he goes up to her and he's like, I know that you want me.
Yeah.
Me. Like, you want me.
Not the legend, not the tabloid figure, not the most fashionable bachelor, not him for his station, not him for his money, not him for any of that. She just wants him.
Him at his core. So he asks how long until she leaves for Africa. And she says 2 weeks. And he is like, okay, are you actually going? And she says, there's nothing keeping me here. And
that's when his face shudders.
Yeah.
He
and
just
he says,
turns off.
Okay. And in her inner monologue, she's thinking to herself, if he had just said one more thing, there were so many things that he could have said beyond accepting this that would have made me stay.
Yeah.
And he did. I was so like, he didn't. And then we have like a little montagey thing, right? Where it's been a week. She's enjoying her belle of the ballness. She's only seen him 3 times across rooms. They haven't interacted.
Yeah.
She avoids him like crazy. And Phoebe
And
is
she's about to go to her last ball.
She's too fucking good for this world. Like, she's too sweet because before this last ball, this is the ball where historically every year some engagement is announced. And the talk of the ton is that it's going to be Lisbeth and Jules. While Phoebe's sitting there listening to the twins and Lisbeth talk about how he's going to be proposing tonight, she is heartbroken,
dying inside.
But in truth, she knew a brief surge of happiness. Jules would get everything he'd ever lived for to date. She knew he would take pleasure in that, in duty, in completion, in history, in the lands restored to him, even though she could never understand it. And then she can't bring herself to look at Lisbeth because she can feign indifference, but not if she was forced to look the death of her dream in its blue, blue eyes.
Wow, Julie.
Julie!
Wow. Ma'am.
I have some words. we need to talk, Julie.
Oh my God.
It took a lifetime to find the person you want to marry. Finding the perfect engagement ring is a lot easier. At BlueNile.com, you can find or design the ring you've always dreamed of with help from Blue Nile's jewelry experts who are on hand 24/7 to answer questions and the ease and convenience of shopping online. For a limited time, get $50 off your purchase of $500 or more with code POD at BlueNile.com. That's $50 off with code POD at BlueNile.com.
So she never told anybody who the benefactor was that saved Charybdis. But at this ball, Waterboard starts putting different pieces together and he realizes that Dryden is the one who saved this cat. And so he asks Lisbeth to dance so that he can drop a few hints and needle her a little bit. And as they're dancing, you know, he tells her like, oh yeah, he showed up with a cat the other day at White's. And like, I think 8 people are going to have cats tomorrow or whatever, which is true, but also didn't happen. He didn't say that. So he tells her all of this. and then she can't keep it together. And she just says, like, what is so special about her? Like, she's a school teacher. She's not even beautiful, because Lisbeth is also the most beautiful thing anybody's ever seen in their lives.
She's a
And she
diamond of the
practices her
season.
different looks, in the mirror all the time. So she knows that she's attractive. And he says, "Oh, didn't the twins tell you? Like, it's all been
Don't you
a prank."
remember? Mhm.
Yeah. We're playing a prank on the ton. We're going to show them that, like, we can make anybody. We're going to make a a school teacher like the most prized woman in the ton, and then like tell everybody that we tricked them essentially later on. And she says, "Oh, so she's just a lark. Oh, yeah. And Jules knows about this?" And he's like, "Well, I don't know that he knows, but I know that he's seen the betting books." And she's like, "Oh, okay. Absolutely." Now, meanwhile,
She's dancing with Lord Camber. Remember the guy who was like actually courting her? He turns into a pushy fucking asshole who won't say no. He asks her to go to the garden with him, which is essentially code for let's go play nookie behind some trees.
let's go make out.
And she says no, she's not interested. And he says, somebody told me that you're free with your favors, basically. And he
Yeah.
won't take no for an answer. He is literally dragging her out of this ball.
And he says,
And
"As soon as we start, you'll enjoy it. I promise."
oh my God. Well, suddenly he lets go of her
He just starts levitating and then he gets dropped.
and he hits the ground. And when he looks up, Dryden is standing over him, just murderous. And he says, I believe she told you to stop, Camber.
Uh-huh.
And he is pissed, obviously. And then they're looking at each other with just like heartbreaking, devoted eyeballs in the middle of this room.
Yeah, because he's wondering if she's hurt. Like, he
Mhm.
doesn't know what to do. And then they hear a throat clear and they realize
The
that the entire
entire
ballroom's
time.
looking at them.
Mhm.
And Lisbeth and Waterboard and the twins are in the front row.
Yeah.
And so Lisbeth is like, "Oh, Jules, like, you really made a scene over her, the school teacher? She's not even really popular. It's so silly that you would make a big deal out of it, because, like, she's been a lark this whole time. Like, they were betting on it and all the business." And so she Phoebe is standing there, and then she looks at Jules being like, "Oh, he's going to tell her that she's being silly." But then she sees him looking at Lisbeth with like warning eyes and shaking his head like, "Don't say another word." And she realizes that it's all true, that they're not actually her friends, and the twins are in on it. And Jules did know the whole time.
During this, she literally looks to the twins
Oh.
for support and they just put their hands up and shrug.
Yeah, they're like, we just played a small part,
So,
basically,
in an effort to basically muddy the waters, right? Because in the
and
ton,
save
rumors and
face.
gossip is everything, right? Like yeah, exactly, saving face. And she is like, yeah, I knew about it all along. I was a part of it. Thank you for being a great audience.
Yeah, thank
And
you and good night. Tip your servers on the way out.
yeah,
And then she does a big giant bow, like the biggest curtsy.
yeah, she runs out. And so we have a little bit of zippy zap back and forth. We're just gonna go
Also,
each person at a time.
wait,
She
really quickly, there's this guy in the crowd as she
yeah,
runs out, and he says, "Wait, she's an actress? Does she have a protector?" You slimy dude. Oh my god.
see, I didn't even take it as I love that, like, he actually you know what I mean? Like,
No. I just mean like his first thought
oh,
is,
now's
"Can I
not the
get it in?"
time. But
Like,
like,
yeah,
like
yeah, yeah.
read the room, dude.
You're saying the quiet part out loud, bro. Like, you're
Bro,
in
this
a crowd.
that's an inside thought. Okay.
Yes.
So she runs, she leaves, she gets outside, she finds the Silverton carriage, and she's like, take me home. She is broken, sad, distraught, right?
She's
Because
gonna
all
pack
of
her
these
shit and get
things,
out of there because they are not her friends.
boy, she does. She gets back to the Silverton house, she packs her stuff, and then decides, I have nothing left to lose. And then
That's
she walks
right.
out of that house for the last time.
Meanwhile, we're going to start back to when she runs out of the ballroom because every instinct in his body is telling him to run after her. But Lisbeth is standing there with this like placating smile on her face as if she's saying like, you'll get over it at some point. It's what's best for you. And he knows that he's supposed to dance with her next. He cannot bring himself to do that, let alone just like touch her. And he finally says, Lisbeth, I can't do this. Like, there's nothing for it, essentially. And Lisbeth is like almost, shocked. She's like trying to argue a little bit without, letting everybody know that they're having a fight, essentially. And he's just like, I can't, I'm so sorry. And he leaves and goes after Phoebe. He runs around St. James Square calling her name as if she is a lost cat.
Phoebe! Unfortunately for him, there was no bald man to give him direction that he could give a big ol' smoocheroo on top of that shiny, shiny head.
Yeah, and she is not in the mood to show her belly and have strangers rub it. That's not what she's in the mood for at all,
Exactly.
frankly.
So he goes home. This was so cute. He goes home and he's miserable. And he's just staring at a decanter of brandy in his office. And he's like, is now the time that I become somebody who throws things when I'm mad and upset?
Like all my mistresses do. You start throwing things.
So he is pouring himself a brandy and then ding dong. And he goes to the front door because his butler is asleep. And it's her.
She's there.
She's there. Big old pelisse that is importantly buttoned all the way up her throat.
Yes. And a pelisse is like a house robe, right? Is that what a pelisse is? Come on, man. You said it as if you had so much authority.
So from context, I've always thought of a pelisse as like a fur-based cloak.
Oh, okay. Oh, it's
like
a
coat. Lined.
Okay, hold on.
Coat or cloak.
A woman's cloak with armholes or sleeves reaching to the ankles. A fur-lined cloak, especially as part of, I don't know, a fur-lined cloak. You're correct. Yeah. So he invites her in.
Hey, guess what? And great example of why context is so great.
Exactly. Yeah. Actually, the other day I saw a reel on Instagram and this lady was like, things I didn't know were autistic until I was diagnosed with autism. And one of them...
to get called out live on podcast.
I don't know. She goes, one of them is I have a deep-seated essential need for context. So the very first question I'm going to ask you, if you ask me anything, is why? It doesn't matter what you ask me. I need to know why you're asking so that I can answer it correctly. And maybe it does remind me of you a tiny bit.
All right, it's been fun, listener. It's been fun. I hope you enjoyed the episode. I need
Sabrina's
to go
gone.
Stare at a wall for a little while.
Yeah. So Phoebe, he says, why are you here? Like, I'm really glad you're here, but why are you here?
By the way, just future reference, Mel. When you see shit like that, and if you think to yourself, that's a little Sabrina.
Little Sabrina?
You're more than welcome to
send
it to
it.
me. My
That's
friend
fair.
Literally just the other day sent me something on Instagram and was like, she's not autistic. And she was talking, she was like, I almost made a group chat with you and blank. Blank is my other friend on the autism spectrum. And she was like, I almost made a group chat just so I could send you all of the autistic memes that I find. And I was like, why didn't you? That sounds amazing. And because she is hysterical and I love her, she says, I couldn't think of a funny enough group name. So if you have any suggestions, listener, for a funny name for a group, because I want that group to be made, but I know she won't just accept me saying like funny meme group to call my friends out, Yeah. Anyway.
Yeah. So she walks in and she just is putting stuff she's putting her belongings down and she's unbuttoning her clothes. And she's like, you knew the whole time. You knew. You let me be excited and brag about my dance card being full. And the whole time you knew. And she's like, so you know what? I don't give a shit anymore. I don't care what you want because I've got nothing left to lose. And the one thing you've been right about is that I have wanted you the whole time. And so tonight, I will have you. And he's like, whoa, 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 you're shaking, you're upset. I'll get you a brandy. Let's sit down. And she's like, no, you've wanted me, Dryden. Take me.
And he says, I didn't know the entire time. And when I did find out, which was very recently, how could I tell you? I'll admit to selfishness only. The greatest pleasure in my life is seeing you happy, even as it killed me to see you with other men.
Yeah.
Breaking your heart would be the same as breaking my own. And you were leaving. You were leaving. You might never have known. Like, oh. And then she drops that fur-lined cloak. And she full on trench coated this man. She's naked.
She's naked.
He is reeling at her loveliness. But then he pauses and he's like, wait, I don't want you like this though. Like and then she starts nailing him right in all of his soft spaces because she knows him. And so she knows all of the places that she can poke and prod, and he starts getting angry. And he's like, I'm literally the only one who's been honest with you from the very beginning.
Right.
And like, no, like this is not what's happening. And she keeps pushing. And then he walks up to her. Explain to me why this was so great.
Okay.
He walks up to her and pushes on her sternum, and she falls on the bed.
Yeah.
And then he's over her.
Yeah.
And reiterates, because he said this a couple of times. He's like, this is not happening right now. I will talk.
I don't want you like
morning.
this.
And she says it's now or never and starts to fight him because she's in a rage. And then he pins her because she's trying to like scratch him and kick him and bite him. Like she's feral. And he pins her hands above her head and he's like, stop. This is not happening. Tonight, we will talk in the morning. We will fix this. We will figure it out. And she
leans up and kisses him. She's like, no, fuck that and fuck you. And then she tells him to pleasure her.
This is what I want. And my note is, it's on TM.
Yeah.
And it is rough and sexy and primal. And they are going at it. He's like sucking and biting. And she's like scratching on him and all of these things. And in my head, in the back of my head, I was thinking to myself, so this is hot. But like, I really didn't want it to happen like this.
It's not
you
what
know
they
what I mean?
need.
I was like, this would be like, this is a great scene, right? It's hot, it's fun, it's great. But like, oh, I was so sad. And then
Julianne Long knew that.
And he's about to like stick it in, and then he hesitates. And she's like, go on. And he's like, his breathing was like bellows. No, he choked. I said yes. No, not like this. And then he like grabs her and rolls over so that she's laying on top of him. And then he just like holds her to him and pets her back and her hair and whispers into her ear, like, I want to make love to you and I want you to make love to me.
And she shakes her head roughly and she's like, no. He says, I want you to make love to me. And she's fighting tears, obviously.
And then he just soothes her.
Every day is filled with opportunities to express yourself. And with an everyday piece from Blue Nile, you can do it without saying a word. Blue Nile's collection of diamond jewelry is the ultimate statement, with sparkle that elevates any outfit. Or switch things up with a sapphire piece sure to spark conversation. Either way, their diamond guarantee ensures you get the highest quality at the best price. Express yourself with Blue Nile and get up to 30% off at BlueNile.com. That's BlueNile.com.
So finally, she relents, essentially, and she collapses into him. And he's just holding her, and she's crying, and he touches that tongue to that ear again, listener, and is like wonderingly touching her. And then she found his lips with hers, a gentle, tentative kiss, testing, an apology, a prelude. And then they have the most intimate experience. She tells him
Well,
she's
she says, "I
afraid.
am afraid." Like, "You were right." Yeah. And then all he says is, "You're safe with me. It was simply the truth."
Oh,
And they're giggling now, and it's so good. It's so
and
good.
yeah, the whole thing is just listener, let me like the 85% that leads up to this is all worth it.
Oh
It's
god.
amazing. So
Yeah.
afterwards, they're like snuggling and spooning, and she thinks he's asleep. And she gets up because she's leaving. Because ultimately, still, nothing has
Nothing's
changed.
changed.
And he is awake and grabs her wrist. And he's like, "You're leaving." And she's like, "Yeah, I am." And I've, he began, he could have completed that any number of ways. Botched everything. Loved you
Hmm.
since I laid eyes on you. Been a complete idiot for you. Never deserved you. Been so
Mhm.
wrong about everything that matters in life. I love you. He hadn't planned to say it. She went still. She kissed her fingers and laid them on his lips, stopping him from saying anything more. "Thank you," he said. "Don't follow me."
And then she leaves his sketchbook there, and that's all she leaves, and he looks through it and realizes that she's just been doing studies of his face. Oh my god, earlier in the book, she told him that emotions are anarctic. Wait, no, anarchic?
Yep, Antarctic. They are
Yep,
shared by Russia. Who else
yeah.
is down there? The United States.
What? No, the Antarctic is the South Pole.
Yeah, I
Russia.
know it is. There's like 3 science bases down there for like 4 big old countries.
Oh, I thought you meant that. Oh, I thought you meant like it shared land like the
No,
Arctic does. And I was like,
no.
what are you? Russia's in the northern hem.
Sorry if that
What's
was
happening right now?
I
Now I got
dolphined
it.
there and
That's
yeah.
fine. That's fine. No, I'm sure that listener got it. I'm sure listener followed you just fine. Okay. It's me who doesn't follow your train of thought.
Based on Spy Master and the iceberg and the Titanic thing, yeah, I probably.
Hmm.
There's some listener out there right now that's like, "I understood that immediately." And guess what?
Yeah.
If it's anything like last time, they're all gonna tell me about it, and I'm gonna
Yeah.
be so happy about it.
Vindicated. So look, he says that he needs her to know someday, somehow, how important she is and how he felt about her. And so even if she doesn't want him, he is going to do a grand gesture that shows just how committed he is to her. So he goes down to White's, the club. He manages to get through all of the men who are now holding cats.
And he looked about and he counted 1, 2, 3, 4 young men holding cats.
Mother of
Striped ones.
God.
My life is a farce. And
It's
I was
crazy.
crying. I was laughing so hard.
Yeah. And so he goes up to Waterboard and he's like, "Hey, you're about to win 1,000 pounds." And Waterboard is like, "What? I mean, it sounds nice, but like, what?" And he goes, "I challenge you to a duel. I'm calling you out with pistols." And he says, "Nobody treats someone that I love like that. No one makes a fool of someone I love," is what he says.
Oh,
Oh.
he also specifically he says, "If you don't show up to this duel." Oh my god, this was so sexy. "If you don't show up to this duel," he leans in and Waterburn is hypnotized, leans forward too. "I will hunt you down. You will never have a moment's rest until I have satisfaction, and I cannot vouch for whether I'll take that satisfaction honorably. I find that honor has become
Ooh.
rather tiresome, in fact." He went
Incredible.
full Taken, and I dug it.
Mhm. I have a special set of skills.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And let me say, this is one of my again, this is a micro trope, and as much as I love a good grovel, one of my favorite things is when they have accepted
That it's not gonna happen.
and they're like, "I will never see this person again, but it's important for me to do this anyway.
And like, listener, he has always told himself he is not going to end up like his dad. He has defined himself in opposition to his dad, and his dad died in a duel over a woman who was not his mother.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, fuck it, I'm doing it. And so he's like, let's get our seconds together. We're going to Sussex and we're going to duel.
There's this old man at White's. The entire book. It's come up the entire book. We haven't mentioned it, but I have to say this because it's so funny. This old man, he's constantly sleeping and like muttering and like having dreams about wars he's been in. And he is awake and the most lucid he's been in forever. And after Dryden leaves, he says, well, I think he'll kill you, Waterburn. Have you seen that boy shoot? I was delighted.
Yeah.
Boy.
So, all right, they go to Sussex, right? And like Waterboard is not going to do this. And so he goes up and he gives a heartfelt apology. And he's like, I'm an idiot and I shouldn't have done that. Like, I shouldn't have she's all that her. Like, you know, yeah, they did a big she's all that on her.
I love that you can make that reference now.
What do you mean now?
Never mind. I got my...
You got your friends mixed up? Wowie. Wowie. You just said some other bitch's name in the middle.
No, it wasn't friend. It wasn't friend. It was movies mixed up. I got she's the man and she's all that flip-flop.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, because we did it for a Patreon watch party.
Accusing me of mixing you up with another person?
I was just reading the evidence I had, all right?
Wow.
Just reading the evidence I had.
A lot of assumptions about that. Kind of like how you make assumptions about how far I am.
That Anyway, so he's like, great. And he ends up getting on his horse and he's going to ride back to the inn or whatever. And meanwhile, she is back at her rooms at the school and she's accepted the position in Africa. She's like doing all the things to get her life back on track. And then out of nowhere, he just gets pelted in the shoulder and he realizes that he has been shot on horseback. So he manages to make it into the Bull and Swallow. And
this is the prologue.
Yeah, this is the prologue. And he's talking about her and she's not pretty. She's beautiful and she doesn't love him and all the business. And so then Jonathan comes and gets her and he's like, hey, man, I know that you and that guy technically fucked over my cousin or whatever, but you're a good egg. And so I'm going to tell you that he's hurt and he's there and he's asking for you, essentially, saying that he needs to talk to the woman who doesn't love him. And so she goes and she collapses at his side and she thought she had lost him.
Well, and because he's fine. She walks in.
Yeah, he's sitting up. He's
whiskey.
Yeah.
And when he looks at her, they both have stopped breathing. And he is gazing at her in shock. And she says, did you have to go and get yourself shot? And he says, clearly, yes. For you're here. Unless, of course, you stopped off on your way to Africa.
And then she says, I thought you had died. And he says, no, I didn't. But I will die if you ever leave me again. And
just watch me.
Just watch me. And she says, Jules, I've been such an unforgivable coward, but you knew all along that I was afraid. I love you. I know, he soothed. You're forgiven. And it's the best. So they're together forever now.
Yeah, and we find out that the reason he got shot, it was an accident. A young man, was target practice in the dusk, and his forelock fell into his eyes when he went to shoot, and that it flippy-flopped around.
Caused him to go astray.
Yep, and they come and apologize. And he's like, I'm so sorry. I will do whatever I have to make this better. And he's like, cut the forelock off.
Yeah. He says, I will require restitution. And this dude's dad is ready to like cut off his hand. He's like, you're going to make this right. And then he's like, you need to get rid of the forelock.
And then he proposes. She says yes. They're together forever, happy forever. And oh my God, it was so sweet. But most importantly, in the epilogue,
Right.
we're hearing a little bit about everybody. And Miss Endicott was the headmistress from the very beginning of the book. When informed that the reason for Phoebe's departure now involved a Marquess, said with her usual alacrity, all of our girls eventually make triumphant matches. And then she winks at Phoebe. And Phoebe is like, did Miss Endicott matchmake me from the beginning?
Oh, shit.
Because she thought it was so weird at the beginning of the book. She's like, I can't believe that I'm considered so on the shelf that I can just wander around the building alone without a chaperone with a man. She wondered suspiciously then, but Miss Endicott was as enigmatic in her way as she was indomitable. Phoebe would never know.
Wowee.
And then, listener, the final part of this book, I just have one last quote for you.
Yeah.
Because he is thinking about how lovely she is and how everybody is like, it's impossible to not to melt in the rays of her radiant happiness. And then at night, Charybdis slept beside them. And when he allowed the Marquess to pet his belly, well, Jules's happiness was complete.
Oh my God.
That's the most perfect final line for this book.
It absolutely is. I don't think that the epilogue is in the audiobook. Yeah. I didn't know any of
Mel.
that. And I thought it ended rather abruptly. It ends when she answers his proposal.
This is one of my most favorite epilogues. We're getting you this epilogue.
It's gorgeous. Oh my gosh.
That's not even all of it. Like there's so many things I could have written about this epilogue, but like I had to say the Miss Endicott thing because like
what a sneaky lady. And at the very beginning, she said that Mrs. Endicott was much more kind than anybody ever knew. And like nobody would know it, you know? Anyway, okay. Hey, Sabrina, what is your lady love?
My lady love is baby powder. You know? I have short hair and bangs.
Yes.
Or like a little, whatever you want to call it. I guess they're bangs, whatever. And I've had that for years. And I touch my hair a lot. It's just one of my things, right? I'm brushing it out of my face or whatever, which means my hair gets pretty greasy. But also my hair is dyed, so I don't like having to wash it regularly because that means I have to dye it more often. Dry shampoo is what people talk about, right?
Yeah.
Hairdressers, people, it's what they use, blah, blah. I have tried an innumerable amount of different kinds of dry shampoo. I've tried the cheap ones. I've tried the expensive ones. I've tried the aerosol ones. I've tried the freaking ones that you can just shake out into your hand. All of these things. And the only reason I did is because people are like, you should use that instead of baby powder. You know what? I'm fucking done. Because guess what? A gigantic thing of baby powder is like $4. And there's no noticeable difference. Oh, but like some of them are dyed. Guess what? You can add color to your baby powder. Guess what?
Oh, shit.
I haven't done it, but like if I want to, I can literally take my hair dye and make a color that is the same fucking color as my hair. Plus, guess what? You know what? Fuck it. I'm bringing back the 1880s. Powder your hair. Who gives a shit? Who gives a shit? Anyway, so my lady love is baby powder. I'm done spending anywhere from $5 to $20 on a freaking thing of dry shampoo when there's no noticeable difference. And like, I know some people can't do that kind of thing because like you have like skin conditions that don't allow for it or like scalp conditions or whatever. And like, I get it. I have psoriasis. So like I have very sensitive skin, but baby powder isn't one of the things that bothers me. And I have been using baby powder again for my hair for the last couple of weeks. Oh,
so much better.
It's not even better. It's literally that it's not worse.
Oh, yeah, sure. Yeah.
It's not a big deal. And guess what? During the summer, you can fucking baby powder the insides of your thighs so you're not chafing all over the goddamn place. Double whammy. You can't put I mean, I guess you probably could put dry shampoo there, but like, fuck it. Fuck it. Baby powder for the win. That's it. That's
awesome.
My lady love. What's your lady love?
My lady love is skipping 4 books in between the first book and the 6th book in order to make a recording with your friend, even though it's bad for your brain and even though that friend may or may not abuse you by sending spoilers accidentally before you get to that part of the book. My lady love is you, Sabrina.
Melody!
This is amazing. This is amazing.
Oh, that's so sweet. It's never happening again.
No, and like I said, I will be more than happy to accommodate because I understand like how much it messes with you. I don't understand, but I understand.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, yeah. Oh, that's so sweet.
You're the sweetest.
I
love you. Yeah. Okay.
All right, listener.
Keeping a badass.
And love yourself as much as you love having context.
Yeah, having all the context. Love yourself as much as Charybdis loves sinking his claws and teeth into non-Phoebe flesh.
The one I was about to say is love yourself as much as you love petting that soft kitty belly.
Being the only other person allowed to Oh my God. Yeah, love yourself that much. Okay, bye. Bye.
I'm your lady love.
All right, we're going to be back next week with The King by Nana Malone. Heaving Bosoms is produced by us, Melody Carlisle and Sabrina Bradley. Editing is done by me, Melody Carlisle. Our theme music is by the incredible singer-songwriter Brittany Fonts, and our art is by the ultra-talented author Kate Pryor. If you like our show, remember to follow us on your favorite podcast app, rate us 5 stars, and leave a review. That one small action is a huge way to help the show. If you want to get in touch for advertising inquiries or anything else, you can email us at heavingbosomspodcast@gmail.com. If you want more of us, visit patreon.com/heavingbosomspodcast. You can also find us on Instagram at heavingbosoms, on TikTok at heaving_bosoms, and in our Facebook group, the Heaving Bosoms Geriatric Friendship Cult. We'll be back next week with The King by Nana Malone. See you Monday.
Ready to pop the question and take advantage of 30% off? The jewelers at BlueNile.com have got sparkle down to a science with beautiful lab-grown diamonds worthy of your most brilliant moments. Their lab-grown diamonds are independently graded and guaranteed identical to natural diamonds, and they're ready to ship to your door. Go to BlueNile.com to get 30% off select lab-grown diamonds. That's BlueNile.com for 30% off lab-grown diamonds. BlueNile.com.